Well, welcome back. I left class on Wednesday and we didn't really have time for lab, so I wanted to kind of step you through some of the key things that were there and really encourage you to kind of work through it on your own. I have posted this file on Moodle. It's called moredata.rmd, and if we go into where it gets downloaded from on Moodle, here is where I have it. We can go ahead and load this up into RStudio. When I do this upload, as you remember, it'll be available now in the files area. If I click on moredata.rmd, it'll actually take us through this markdown file. We could just go ahead and click on knit PDF. I've put all the commands in there for you. But today what I want to do is I want to use the chunk command. If I say run current chunk, and then if I say run next chunk, it'll go ahead and start running through these individual chunks that we have. So now it's actually loading the CDC data. It's a big data set that's coming in remotely. It's about 20,000 observations. So it'll take a minute or two to just kind of pull that in there. So I'm waiting patiently at this point. There we have it. We now have this CDC data set. We can click on it, and it gives us some sense of what the variables are within it. We can kind of scroll through these as we like. Remember, when you run on the console in this way by doing individual chunks, you're running locally. If I now knit PDF, I would get a new version of R that's running separately that will give me kind of a clean installation of everything. So it's really starting from scratch. Go ahead now and run this next chunk. It gives me kind of the commands here of the variable names that are in there. The next chunk will actually show me the first couple of lines using the head command. That can be very helpful for us. We can run the tail command to see the last of the observations. Go ahead and do a summary. Summary is kind of similar in some respects to favstats. It can be used for a data frame or in this case a variable. And here we're referencing a variable within a data frame by saying CDC $weight. This is another way to access variables. We've been using the tilde and the data equals, but this is another approach that will work. We can actually then calculate the IQR ourselves, kind of calculate other summary statistics, but eventually we're going to come down to running favstats, which will give us all of those in one fell swoop. Other things we can be doing, we can calculate what proportion we have of smokers, what proportion of people, giving us a proportion as opposed to a count, doing some bar chart commands to kind of see different things. Again, different kind of setup here, just looking at the smokers, looking at that by gender in this case. Here we have a situation, because of the way I've set things up, the figure margins are not large enough. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of make that figure area larger for our plots. And I'm going to now use the up arrow to rerun that. And we see now that I've resized this, it actually works without any problems. You can calculate the dimension, how big this data frame is. We saw that earlier. We can think about now indexing different parts of this data frame. By saying 567,6, I say I want the 567th row and the 6th column of these data. And if we actually went through, we would see that that is what's being displayed. As I said, we can see the names again to kind of refresh our memory. Kind of now see I want to be looking at the first 10 observations for the 6th column. That 6th column, if you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, is the weight variable. You can see that 1 to 10 just gives us this sequence of 1 to 10. That's a little shorthand to generate that sequence for us. And now we can actually see by doing CDC 1:10 all of the values, and again those weight values are the same as ones we saw. We can do this another way by saying the head command for that column and just give us those first 10 values. Or just by saying this by specifying the weights. By default, the head command will give us kind of usually about 3 to 6 values. We can again grab that 567th value in the same kind of way, showing it's the same. So again, part of this lab is really starting to think about different ways of accessing data as kind of little chunks. We could also have this idea of logical comparisons. We saw this a little bit with the daytype variable that was created. We can actually calculate trues and falses of whether the gender is equal to this string m, and we can see for that first and the none of the other first six is it actually a male subject. We can also calculate how many of them have ages that are greater than 30. In this case, all of them are greater than 30. Filter command is a command that's within dplyr that lets us kind of look just at a subset. We can now see that we have the male data is only the 9,569 observations that are male. We can go ahead now look at those, and we do see that again all those are male. Notice the difference here. I'm actually now specifying M data as opposed to CDC as I proceed. We can do the same thing. We can calculate the males who are over 30. That's the 7,244 of them. And we can calculate an OR rule. So you can see for these comparisons, these are just logical comparisons that use our standard Boolean operators. The OR is much more common. We see that in our probability conversations. Probability of A and B is much less than A or B unless A and B are disjoint. We can calculate now box and whisker plots for the CDC variable or for different subsets of it and proceed in various ways. I would encourage you to kind of step through the rest of this activity just to kind of give you this sense, a little bit more practice with data. There is no deliverable for this, but again, the journey is the reward, and I would encourage you to keep any questions about R coming as you have them. Keep up your excellent efforts.